Malaysia tercinta di bawah pemimpin berjasa, tetap bebas, aman, maju dan berjaya. Bakti kami untukmu Malaysia.
And good day, dear viewers. Welcome to the 18th series of the International and Domestic Virtual Colloquium, which is also known as COMAT 2022, organized by the International Languages Teachers Training Institute, Kuala Lumpur, or better known as IPGKBA. With the theme Going Global, Internationalizing Education, I am Muhammad Irman bin Harun, your moderator who is also an academic lecturer from the International Languages Teachers Training Institute. I will be hosting the session today. We hope all of you will stay tuned until the end of this session because we have a notable speaker, Datin Dr. Bushra Binti Ali, the Director of Institute of Teacher Education International Languages, Campus Kuala Lumpur. In today's webinar, Datin Bushra will enlighten us with a talk entitled Reengineering Education, So What's Next? And share with us the summaries of COMAT. In addition to her talk, she will also officiate the closing of COMAT for 2022. Before we begin, allow me to lay out a few housekeeping matters. Today's session is being recorded to be available for viewing via EduWeb TV of the KPM. Firstly, every participant who joins this webinar will be given a certificate, and therefore do not forget to actually register yourself using the registration link displayed on the screen. Secondly, if you have any questions for the presenter, kindly use the chat features in this live StreamYard webinar, and the questions will be answered at the end of the session. So let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, re-engineering is defined as the process of changing and improving the design of a product or a system. Changes in education are inevitable as the landscape of education now has rapidly improving and changing. However, the biggest question is that, are we ready for the changes? Therefore, In this session, we have invited our panel who would dive in depth to this topic, re-engineering or redesign our education, and the next thing to do is never an easy process. Before that, let me introduce our panel for today. We have Datin Dr. Bushra Ali here with us. Datin Dr. Bushra Ali has more than 30 years of experience in teaching and has been actively doing research in the fields of secondary education, e-learning, multimedia, and computer software development. She has published many papers in journals and international conferences. Currently, she is actually the director in International Languages Teachers Training Institute Kuala Lumpur, or better known as IPJKBA. So, dear viewers, we are now so excited to know about the topic re-engineering education. How can education be associated with engineer, and what re-engineering education is all about? So without further ado, let's get on today's webinar entitled Re-Engineering Education. So what's next? So Datin Dr. Bushra, what is re-engineering education?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Irman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning, everyone. Re-engineering education is actually how educators reconstruct and scaffold the education to fit the landscape of education field in these current situations. And as we have discussed from session 1 until session 17 of this COMAT, we have peeled the issues and discussed few approaches on how to go about in equipping ourselves for the big wave in education. For instance, when the pandemic strikes, what have we done to keep the learning process going? The reliance on technology is so much important as the borderless environment offered has made it possible for us to still communicate though we are not face to face. This has taught us that anything could happen, and to rely just solely one practice is never enough.
Okay, thank you, Datin Dr. Bushra. We see how we should not be in our comfort zone and should not actually depend solely on one thing. So I'm sure as for now, the landscape of education has tremendously changed with ICT started to be so much important during the pandemic. And we know that both physical and online teaching and learning should be interweaved so that optimum benefits can be reaped by both educators and also learners. So Datin, we would also like to obtain insights on what should we do next after we are aware of all these massive changes that took place. Is being aware just enough, or we should shift to totally ICT? So can you actually enlighten us on this matter?
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Irman. I think being aware or just equip yourself with all the knowledge needed is obviously not enough. When schools and other higher education institutions have decided to operate physically as usual, relying solely on ICT alone is not appropriate. But that doesn't mean that ICT will have to die naturally when physical classes have taken place. We have to learn from the past. In other words, both physical classes and online classes should be balanced. We do not want to repeat the same mistake. Being ever ready regardless of any situation should always be our utmost priority. In fact, we should upgrade ourselves with the latest info and technology so that we are always ahead. For instance, since online classes started to take place, there are mushrooming platforms invented and keep on actively being produced for the sake of upgrading education. We also have many webinars where educators could just learn with just a click. For instance, this COMAT International and Domestic Virtual Colloquium is available for educators and even learners to view not only live but also recorded version. And not to mention other online platforms, StreamYards and other, you just name them, are offered for everybody to gain and learn something. Thus, updating ourselves as educators and even learners is never a hassle. What is more important is what drives you to keep up to date, to keep yourself up to date. To keep on being up to date is always the best thing to do in ensuring that we are not left behind. At the same time, when physical classes have started, it is not a crime to blend ICT together as to make the teaching and learning process lively.
All right, thank you so much, Datin Dr. Bushra. We see how we should not go back to what we have been practicing before, right? So online approach in delivering should not die a natural death, though classes are conducted physically now. So dear viewers, we are all aware that in essence, these changes in education setting has indirectly made us more flexible and creative in teaching and learning. With this in mind, let's hear from Datin Dr. Bushra. How would we cope and what should we do?
Okay, so viewers, being aware and the knowledge alone will never be enough if nothing is being implemented and applied. After being aware of what is happening and get ourselves equipped with the knowledge, it should never stop there. Yes, indeed, it is a never-ending process of being aware, learn, and implement. So to say, do not run away from the process of learn and relearn. After what we have scaffold and built, the implementation part is also important. Yes, it is true that if we fail to plan and we plan to fail. Yet excellent planning will never result until anything without materializing. So how to ensure that materializing everything that we have absorbed will be effective? First, if we should select the knowledge that we have to suit our needs. For instance, we need to see the pros and cons of the approaches that we plan to implement based on the situation we are in. Now, all the technologies that we have learned will be suitable for our learners. Sometimes we need to use our own creativity to adopt and adapt. The simplest explanation is there no such thing as one size fits all. Indeed, it is true that we could get all the information just by a single click. But how do we use the knowledge to redesign and reconstruct the knowledge we have to suit our situation is another level of equipping ourselves with. Education setting is not anymore something very laid back and chalk and talk. Having just vast knowledge without knowing to improvise it will be such a waste. For instance, the knowledge on approaches like differentiated learning, blended learning, and even problem-based learning will not mean anything if it does not be applied. Even they are not supposed to just be implemented exclusively. Flexibility in mixing all the approaches to suit the needs depends on our own creativity. Just like when we cook, the same dishes might not make everybody happy. However, a mixture of everything will ensure to suit the taste buds of everybody. This is what teaching and learning should be, and that is why sharing of best practices is believed to be helpful.
All right, thank you so much, Datin Dr. Bushra. That is a very good analogy being used there. So, ladies and gentlemen, for our next segment, we will be discussing on the suggestions and recommendations related to the topic today, which is re-engineering education. So, what's next? So, Datin Dr. Bushra, what is actually your recommendations and suggestions?
Okay, so this is the most interesting part. What I said, best practices is very much helpful, and I would suggest that we have more sharing, and this means huge networking. United we stand, divided we fall. This very popular saying has even foreshadowed the need for us to be together. When we have more networking, be it locally or internationally, this will ensure that we will go far. Knowledge is something to be shared and not just be kept inside. Huge networking will not make us feel stressed as we could discuss and will lighten the burden. As many people involved in re-engineering and reconstructing education, though it might be big, it is not impossible. So I would suggest that all educators and learners to work hand in hand to ensure that education will always soaring upwards for the betterment of the future of the nation.
All right. So thank you very much, Datin Dr. Bushra. So indeed, re-engineering education, so what's next, should not be taken lightly. We might not survive the huge wave if we are not working, if we are working on our own. But if we do it together, nothing can't be achieved. So the beauty of networking is we celebrate the difference in order to achieve one main objective, which is to educate. And from this, I'm sure that it will be an eye-opener to everyone that if we do everything together, we would solve many issues. So with all the re-engineering education, we have now come to the question and answer session. So for the question and answer session, allow us to conduct this session both in English or our national language, which is in Bahasa Melayu. So we have a few questions here. So the first question is, all right, Datin Dr. Bushra. So our first question here, this one is from Dr. Munira, if I'm not mistaken. So what's your strategy to keep education relevant, okay, with the advancements of technology?
Okay, so what strategy to keep education relevant with the advancement of technology? I think first, you need to read for information. And also you have to engage in conversation that are impactful and meaningful. And also you have to embrace and immerse in change. I think that is what you need to do to keep education relevant nowadays.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Thank you so much, Datin. So we need to have more information and can engage in conversation, which are impactful and meaningful. And also we have to embrace and immerse in change. All right. The second question, okay, this one is actually from Miss Ifa. So re-engineering education, as you shared just now, is very much driven by willingness to change and learn. So as a leader, because you are now the director, okay, can you share with us some initiatives that you have implemented to encourage educators to continue learning and view change positively?
Okay, another question again.
Yeah.
So maybe some of the initiative that we have implemented is by providing a platform for educators to keep learning, such as through collaboration and impactful projects, like we had participation in innovation competition, research workshop, and of course, COMAT.
All right. Thank you so much, Datin, Dr. Bushra, for sharing with us for today. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is so sad that we have come to an end of this webinar. And we hope that all of you out there have gained some insights on re-engineering education. So what's next? And enjoyed the session. But before we go, I will pass the mic for the last time to the Honorable Datin Dr. Bushra Ali for the closing ceremony. So please welcome the Director of IPG KBE, Datin Dr. Bushra Ali.
Okay, thank you again, Irman, and thank you, viewers, moderators, teachers, students, scholars, for your support and participation in this year's COMAT. And it has always been our pleasure and honor to host this online webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, without a further ado, I announce COMAT 2022 officially closed. Thank you and see you again next year.
We wish to thank our speaker, Datin Dr. Bushra Ali, for spending her precious time with us on this platform. So thank you for attending. We would also like to extend our gratitude to the Educational Technology Division, Ministry of Education Malaysia, for the platform, and our technical team at IPGKBA for making this possible. So with this, let's internalize the theme Going Global, Internationalizing Education. Thank you.
Bye. Jumpa lagi.
Nama saya Azhar. My name is Incha Azhar. I have done my 12 years. So, goodbye. Au revoir.
So much, everyone. See you again next year. Bye.
Everyone for being part of this. See you again next year. Bye.
Thank you, Komat. We learned a lot from you. Wishing you goodbye from beautiful Bangkok.
ولكن شكرا جزيلا للمشاركة. إن شاء الله نلتقي في السنة القادم إن شاء الله. أديرك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Okay, thank you everyone for your support and participation in COMAT 2022. Hope to see you again next year. Bye-bye.
Thank you.